So for this video, we are doing the rotate and straighten assignment. So I'm going to go into the instructional materials, week 19 and day 39. Okay, so here is the rotate and straighten assignment. Right, I have some instructions in here. We're essentially turning this picture into this picture, right? So I'm going to go ahead and open this picture in Photopea. So let me click on the link. Right, here it is. Once it's open, you're going to go back to Schoology and you're going to bring over this image. So I'm going to click and drag the picture over to Photopea and I'm going to let it go in here. Right, there it is. So the first thing to do is to duplicate the layer, right? Anytime we modify a picture, we have to sort of just duplicate it. So I'm going to go to Layer and click on Duplicate Layer, right? Layer, Duplicate Layer. You can also press Command J or Control J on your keyboard, depending on which button you have. And it's going to duplicate it for you, right? So I clicked it and it created a copy for me, right? There it is. I'm going to hide the background one and we're only going to be using the layer one layer, right? So that's what we're going to be messing with. All right. So now that we have our duplicate, right? The first thing to do is to make a selection. So I'm going to go into the rectangle select tool, the second tool in the toolbox, and I'm just going to make a selection of the first frame. This one right here. Right? If you guys need to move your selection for whatever reason because it's cutting off a little bit at the top, you guys can press the space bar on your keyboard and it should let you move your selection to another area, right? So if you need to move it a little bit to the top, you guys can do that, right? Just press the space bar, it's going to let you move it. Once you let go, it's going to let you resize your selection, right? So I'm going to make a selection on this first frame, right? Here it is. Here's my selection. So now I'm going to rotate this, right? To rotate this, I'm going to go to Edit Free Transform, right here at the top, Edit and Free Transform, and it should create the boxes around your image, right? Just like if we're resizing this. But we're actually going to rotate this, right? Because we need to align this. This needs to be the frames need to fit perfectly or hang perfectly on our wall. Okay, so I'm going to bring down a guide. Okay, and I'm going to just sort of use this to help me see if my frame is straight or not. Right? So I brought it down. It doesn't necessarily have to be anywhere specific, your guide, right? Just put it down so that you have a reference of if it's even or not, right? So once I've decided that, yeah, this is pretty straight, right? So I'm gonna leave it like that. I'm going to leave it. I'm gonna press OK. I could press the check mark button up here or I can press enter on my keyboard, right? And there it is, right? I'm going to do the exact same thing to the second one. I'm going to make my selection, right? I'm going to go to Edit, Free Transform, and I'm just going to rotate this, right? So you could bring down another guide, right? You can bring another one down and use that to help you straighten out your frame, or you could just bring it down to the other guide that you had, right? Because you had this guide already from this picture. So you can use the other one, right? You could bring a new one down or you can use the old one, just bring the picture frame a little bit lower, right? Either way. So I'm gonna leave it like this. So I'm gonna, I think it's straightened. So I'm gonna press this check mark up here, right? And now we're done with rotating the images, right? So as you guys can see, there are some empty spaces in the background, right? When you see the checkered marks, that just means that there's no information there, right? That there's no color there. So if we were to print this, the gray color would come out and then wherever there's checker mark, it would be blank. So it would be white, right? So you'd definitely be able to tell that there's something in the background, right? So you can do this one of two ways, okay? So you can use the brush tool to just sort of fill in the information that's missing. And we can do that by using the eyedrop tool, right? So if you can't find it, it is right here underneath the crop tool, okay? If for whatever reason it's not showing up over here in the toolbox, you guys can just click on this magnifying glass and just look for the eyedropper, right? The eyedropper tool, okay? It's gonna be the first one, okay? So this tool lets us find out what color is in a specific area, right? So for example, if I want to get the orange from these trees, I can, once I have my tool selected, I can click on where the trees are and it'll give me the color over here at the bottom of the toolbox, right? I have an orange color right here at the first front box, right? That's the color that is in there. If I switch it to another area, for example, his jeans, right, click, it's going to give me the color of his jeans on the area that I clicked, right? If I click on the green back here, it's going to give me a green, right? The blue sky, I'm going to click on it, it's going to give me that blue sky color, right? So it's just picking up information on where you're clicking of what a color that is, right? So I'm going to click on the background because that's the color that I want. So I'm going to click on the background one time, right? And it's going to change that first front box to that very light gray color, right? Once I have my color, I can go into the brush tool and simply just fill in the information, right? Oh, it's not letting me because I have a selection. If you want to deselect, you can go back into the rectangle select tool and simply click outside of the selection, right? And it'll make your selection disappear. Or you can press Command D or Control D and it should deselect your image, right? So let me go back. I already have my color. I'm going to go into the brush tool and I could just fill it in, right? There it is, right? That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to make selections and filling in the background. This option is going to let you choose another color for your background. So if you don't like this gray color, this light gray color, you can change it to another color, right? So I'm going to go into the rectangle select tool, the second tool in the toolbox, to make my selections. I have to make my selections and then fill in my selections with a color, right? So I have my rectangle select tool. I'm going to click on this first front box because I want to change that gray color into another color, right? Let's say that I want to do a lavender type of color, right? I'm going to press OK. And it's going to fill in that first front box with the color that I chose, right? So once I have my color selected and my tool selected, the rectangle select tool, I can just start making selections where the frames are not and where the floor is not, right? So I'm going to do little by little. I'm going to make my first big selection right here at the top, right? Being careful not to erase any of the frames. And all I'm going to do is press the buttons Option Delete or Alt Backspace. And it's going to fill in my selection with the color that I chose over here, right? So I can just select it little by little, right? Make sure you guys stay away from the frames and the floor, right? And just fill it in. Option Delete or Alt Backspace. Right? If it's not filling in, make sure that there's no selection on anywhere, right, apart from the ones that you're doing. And then you need to have your first layer selected. That should be selected so that you can fill in your space, right? So I'm going to start filling in my space here. I'm using the space bar to just sort of help me make my selection, right? Option Delete, right, or Alt Backspace. And I'm just selecting the areas where the frame isn't, where the floor isn't, right, and just filling in my selection with that color, right? Option Delete or Alt Backspace, right? There it is. Right, so I filled in my missing areas and I changed it to a color that I actually like, right? So there it is. So you're either using the brush and the eyedropper to find out what the color is, right? So you can blend it in. It should be all one color, your background, right? Or unless you're applying a gradient, you guys can also do that as well, right? So once we have our background filled, right? The last thing to do is to delete the floor, right? And I'm going to show you guys why. So I'm going to make my selection, right? I'm going to only select the floor, right? We want to get rid of these little pieces that are sticking out, right? So I'm going to press delete once I make my selection, right? So if you guys notice that, I made a selection on the floor, right? And I'm going to press delete, okay? It's going to get rid of those little things that were pointing out, right? Once I delete the floor, all I did was select the floor and I pressed backspace on my keyboard, right? Backspace, erase, delete, right? And it's going to erase that part of the picture. Okay. Once you delete that part of the picture, you're simply going to go back over here to the layers window and you're going to reactivate that background layer and it's going to pull through the floor from the copy that you made, right? And this is what it should look like. Okay. The wall should be all one color, right? There should be nothing sticking out. The frame should be straight, right? I should be able to see the floor and the wall and the frames, right? And that's it. You guys have to turn this in as a screenshot, right? Make sure you take your picture, right? And you submit it. And that's all you have to do.